We heard the siren before. We saw the yard. It was faint at first, rising and falling somewhere ahead of us. The kind of emergency alarm that should have been turned off days ago. It echoed between rows of shipping containers stacked like giant metal walls, making it impossible to tell exactly where it was coming from. Cargo yards? Or mazes? Long lanes, sharp corners, and stacked containers that block sightlines every few meters. We entered through a broken side fence, moving single file between two towering rows of containers painted in faded reds and blues. Rust streaks ran down their sides, and loose metal doors clanged softly whenever wind pushed through the narrow corridors. The siren kept wailing. Long, uneven bursts that made the whole yard feel like it was warning about something that had already happened. Our task was to cross the yard and check the loading platforms on the far side. A straight path on paper, but the container lanes forced us into tight, blind turns that slowed every step. I walked near the front, watching the end of each corridor before we reached it. The ground was covered in gravel and scattered pallets. It shifted under our boots, adding unwanted noise that echoed off the steel walls. We turned into a wider loading lane, where containers opened into a small clearing near a raised platform. That was when the first shot came. It slammed into the side of a container beside us, sending sparks and metal fragments across the gravel. We dropped into cover instantly, pressing against container corners while scanning the elevated loading platform ahead. Movement flashed between stacked crates on the platform. I leaned around the container edge and fired controlled bursts toward the crate stacks, forcing whoever was there to duck lower behind the cargo. Then gunfire erupted behind us. Another burst came from the lane we had just crossed, cutting off our retreat and trapping us in the open loading zone. The sirens screamed overhead, mixing with the sharp echoes of gunfire bouncing between steel walls. Radio calls stayed fast, but steady. Hold loading lane, watch rear corridor. Maintain container cover. I shifted along the container edge, gravel crunching under my boots as I moved toward a forklift parked sideways near the platform. Its heavy frame gave better cover and a clearer angle toward both firing positions. Dusts and rust flakes drifted through the air with each impact. The siren's rhythm made it harder to track distance, its constant wail filling every pause between shots. The exchange stretched on. Then the firing from the platform slowed first, becoming uneven before stopping completely. A moment later, heavy metallic crashes echoed from above the loading area. The rear corridor resistance lasted a few seconds longer. One final burst struck the gravel near my position. Then the lane behind us fell silent too. We held our positions, watching container corners and platform edges. The siren continued to scream, unchanged, echoing through the yard like it didn't notice the silence that had returned. When we finally moved across the loading zone and continued toward the far exit, the yard looked ordinary again. As we stepped out through the far gate, I glanced back once. The siren still echoed through the container lanes. That yard stayed with me because the sound never stopped. Even after everything went quiet, that alarm kept ringing. Like the place itself was still trying to warn anyone who passed through that something had gone wrong long before we arrived. Thanks for watching.